So when that dot is up there, that's the time.
Chris has indicated 5 to 7. So when they have 2 minutes left in their speech, I'm going to hold up the green card, and then to 1 minute the yellow card, and then times expired the red. And you have a buzzer too, so way beyond. Table topics are usually 1 to 2 minutes. We have 1 minute green, 1 minute 30 seconds for yellow, and 2 minutes for red. So you kind of want to wrap it up at that point. We haven't had that much trouble with table topics, but let's see today if we can actually hit that mark instead of 30 seconds. Evaluators, you'll have 2 to 3 minutes. So at 2 minutes, 2 minutes 30 seconds, and 3 minutes, you'll have the different cards. Bear with me, I'm running new equipment, so hopefully I'll get it together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Abby. And Melissa's still not here, so we'll just jump down to speech number 2. Stacy has asked for 8 to 10 minutes from Competent Communicator number 10, which is inspirational, and her title is Helpless. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guests. I would like to invite you, just as we get started here, to think of a situation, a recurring situation in your life where it's something that just drives you crazy and you feel like you have no control over it. It might be other people driving, cutting you off in traffic. Maybe that's what drives you crazy. Maybe it's people that throw their litter on the ground. I want you to think of a situation like that and then keep it in the back of your mind because I'm going to bring it back later. A couple of weeks ago, I was at a conference and I met a woman who I will call Brownie. After interacting with her in workshops for a couple of days, I started to look at her in fascination every time she opened her mouth because the amount of energy and creativity that she put into being helpless was absolutely astonishing. It was amazing. If we were talking about creating proactive plans, she had reasons, lists of reasons why that just wasn't hard. If someone brought up a challenge or a problem, she had way worse than that. This woman had turned her entire life into being helpless and finding reasons to justify it. And when I left and I was thinking about it, I thought, whoa, what a miserable way to live. I'm glad I'm not like that. And I went home and after the initial glow of reunion with my beautiful family was over, I found myself complaining to my husband, my honey, we're not married yet, but I was complaining to him about our kids. Because they never put their dirty clothes in the dirty clothes basket. This is the dirty clothes basket. Here, there's the dirty clothes. Anywhere but here. And as I was talking to Brooklyn, I had a horrifying epiphany. I was being like Frowny. But I had a follow-up epiphany. I could change this. All of us have times in our lives where we feel like we don't have any control, where we're helpless, and it makes us feel exhausted and exasperated and frustrated and angry, and it's exhausting for us, it's exhausting for the people around us. I mean, how many times is Brian going to want to listen to me talk about this? But there is something that we can do. I want you to think about that thing that drives you crazy as I walk through a strategy for taking control of the situations that you feel like you don't have any control of. We all have situations where we feel like we don't have any control in our, in the things that are happening to us in our life. But there is one thing. There is one thing that we always have control over. Always. Our thoughts. We can change the way that we look at a situation, the way that we frame a situation. I'm going to walk through that strategy, how to recognize and change your reaction, and I'll walk through it with using my example, but I want you to think about your example as we're going through it and how you can apply this strategy to your life. We've already taken the first step, you've already taken the first step, and that's recognizing that there's a place in your life where you feel helpless. It's okay. We all do it, even people like me who didn't see frowny in themselves, we all do it. It's okay. Be kind to yourself, be compassionate, and then move on to step 2. Step 2 is questioning the assumption that someone is harming you. Now, if you look at this situation with the hamper, and you imagine little boys running into the bathroom and whipping off their clothes and jumping into the bathtub, where in that situation am I? I'm not. I'm not in this situation. The person that puts me in that situation is me. I think to myself, those boys are intentionally creating more work for me. And I know, I mean, if I stop and think about it, I know that they are not having clandestine meetings to coordinate their efforts to throw their dirty clothes on the ground to intentionally hurt me. Of course not, that's crazy. So how can I question, what are some other ways I could frame the way that I'm thinking about that? It's not me, they're not hurting me. If I think they're hurting me, that is me, not them. And now the step where you can take some action is in the motives that you assign to the person that is doing whatever it is that they're driving you crazy about. If I assume that these children are intentionally trying to harm me, well, then I'm going to be angry and upset and hurt. But what if I think to myself, I'll bet the reason they can't get those clothes in that basket is because they are actually listening very carefully to the last thing that I just told them, which is get your butt in the bathtub right this very minute. They don't have time to worry about getting their clothes in that basket. You know, they got to get them in the bathtub. Or maybe the reason that they throw their clothes all over the floor is because, and I think this is probably the more likely scenario, this is what's wrong with this? They don't even see that there's anything that might bother me about that. They're little boys. We all have times, even the most empowered of us, where we feel like we can't change what's going on. We can't change what's happening to us. But there is always a chance to change how you feel about what is happening to you. And now, the next time that you're driving in traffic or someone throws their cigarette butt on the ground, you can think about a compassionate, kind reason that maybe they're doing that. A reason that you can, understand. And then take yourself out of the situation of intentional harm. And it will change, it will greatly decrease the amount of anxiety and anger and frustration that you. If you remember only one thing about what I've talked about today, remember to be kind to yourself and to other people, and it will greatly improve your life and help you avoid situations where you are a drain on other people, like frowning.
Thank you, Stacy. This is an important part of the meeting for us. We're going to take 1 minute and do our evaluations. Did everybody get sheets? Anybody need any sheets? Okay. And for our second speech for today, we'll jump down to Chris because Melissa's still not here. And Chris has asked for 5 to 7 minutes on the competent communicator. And the title of his speech is, How Much Is It Worth? Just welcome, Chris.
Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmaster. Most welcome guests. I do have a question for you. What is your most valuable asset? You are on a fabled desert island with nothing but your skivvies. What is your most valuable asset? Oh. I am about 3 feet above the ground. And without going into acrimonious debate with you, I feel pretty safe and have absolutely no desire for any safety equipment. But in your mind's eye, pretend that I am 10 times higher above the ground. And which is about 25 feet. Nearly 3 stories above the ground. Now instead of this nice sturdy platform, imagine that I am on the very top rung of a ladder leaned up in a tree. Now I could really use some safety equipment. Continuing on with this imaginary scene with a wonderful view, pretend that I am dressed in a full beekeeper's outfit. And in one hand, I have no idea what it looks like, but I'm going to call it a bee bucket. And right above me, just a few more feet, is a swarm of honeybees. Just a few more feet out of my reach. A sturdy looking branch would come in really handy right about now. That 30-foot fall, with nothing to slow the descent to the ground, takes just under 1.5 seconds. And right before impact, I reach a speed of nearly 30 miles an hour. When I land on the ground, square on my feet, I simply fracture the heel of my right foot along with a couple lower vertebrae. However, on my left foot, I have not only cracked my heel, but I have shattered my ankle in a compound fracture. I'm very thankful that I do not get myself into that kind of a situation. In real life, I have never broken a bone. I think I have come close on accident. But with my risks, I have made them calculated ones. One can survive jumping out of an airplane as well as bungee jumping with exhilarating success. I am here to prove that they are very survivable. Back to those calculated risks. When I work, I love to do woodworking. And every time I do, I make ear and eye protection a necessity. It is the first thing I do before I plug in a tool. I also don't use my very large and powerful tools when I am exhausted or overly distracted. To this day, I have no idea how he did it, but I have an old coworker that somehow ran his hand over a table saw, and now only can count to 9. I also have a helmet both for motor and pedal cycles. Another piece of safety equipment is this very large, very, very heavy leather jacket when I ride my motorcycle, even on days that are into the 90s and very, very humid. I figure a little sweat at the stoplights is a small price to pay for protection of road rash when I am not standing still. I can't imagine doing very much without safety equipment anymore in order to protect my assets. If, for the sake of my loved ones, my precious loved ones, if not for myself. So, about 2 weeks ago, it was a relative of mine that climbed a ladder, leaned up into a tree, and eventually required a Mail 1 helicopter ride here to Rochester. His repair surgery did go very well. However, he is going to be wheelchair bound for several weeks before he can even start his rehab. If only he would have worn that safety harness that was packed in the van nearby.
Thank you, Chris. And we'll take 1 minute for Chris. Question. What is the difference between living and existing? Give me a couple of seconds to think about that. Is there Chris? Tabletop master. This is a fun topic for me. If I didn't understand the difference between living and existing, I wouldn't seek out things like motorcycles. I wouldn't openly welcome gifts of tandem skydives or get excited about bungee jumping. To me, I am extremely, I guess a good word would be pity those that don't go out of their way to interact with others, help others, or just seize the day. They get up, they go to work, they have the required
calories for their body for the day, they go home and they sleep. To me, that is existing. Having fun at a Toastmaster meeting, sharing points of view, sharing stories, seizing the day, to me, that is my definition of living.
Very interested in hearing someone's perspective on that particular question. And I would have to agree with you. I guess I don't, from a living perspective, I don't seek out bungee jumping, skydiving, and those types of things, but I can certainly understand how people get into those things and the thrill of those types of things, but for me, in particular, not so much. I like.
We can
other
acrimoniously
activities like
debate it later.
baseball. Could acrimoniously debate that topic. Thanks again, Chris. Second question, and it somewhat may go along with my first question, but a little bit different. A little bit different question. How do you define success? About that a little bit. If there's anyone that would like to volunteer to come up and
Mr. Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters, I think it's in the way that Alan is phrasing the question that is keeping us from volunteering. Who would like to come up and address this question? That's a tough question. I don't want to come up and answer that. But I will because of my definition of success, which I interpret in the short amount of time from there to here to being the experience. The success is stretching your boundaries, challenging yourself, and trying something. You may not do well. And remember, Tom gave a speech a couple of weeks back where he talked about what's the definition of failure. And I took that to heart to say that if I don't try it, if I don't move out of my comfort zone, if I keep to the normal rhythm and pace and all of those things that I know I can do well, you know, I might get some success out of that. But if I haven't pushed myself very far, then I really haven't achieved a personal success. It's not monetary, it's not how many things I do well at, it's the exploration and the trying, and I think that's where my definition of success comes in. Now I would like to go back to my chair.
And I would agree, there's a whole lot more to the definition of success than monetary success or the amount of money you make in your career, or I would even argue that where you're at in terms of in your career, are you not a great term, but a worker bee, or are you CEO of a company or whatever, I don't think really determines success. Topic 3, question 3. How would you spend your ideal day?
Question is, how would I spend my ideal day? There's going to be different parts and pieces to this, so we're going to put things together. I would start waking up in our camper in the middle of Yellowstone with the mountains all around us. The remnants of last night's fire smoking and smoldering. The coffee pot, somebody's actually else has turned it on and it's hot before I get up. I'm always one. Have a nice hot pot of coffee, go out, stoke up the fire. My wife will get up and we'll sit and talk for a while and read our Bibles, and eventually the kids will wake up and we'll get breakfast, and then we'll debate about what are we going to do today. And that ideal day would be going on some hiking, seeing nature, enjoying it, the mountain streams, all the different wildlife, and then coming home and, as my kids would joke, we'd have hot dogs for supper, grilled over the fire and with some s'mores. And the benefit from s'mores is, with a beard and mustache, it's not a one-day event. You can have it for the next day. And wait, wait for the sun to set, beautiful sunset over the mountains. And eventually go to sleep with the birds singing and everything else and quiet. And the wood smoke of the fire. I'm not going to fall asleep right now if I keep talking.
My ideal day would have been probably participating in Chris's event this past Saturday. Unfortunately, I had a graduation open house that I had 2 hosts. I would have loved to have been eating wood-fired pizza. That would have been a great day for me. In fact, I want to talk to you about it.
There will be others.
Well, I want to talk to you about the oven. Anyways, I guess I have one more. I can grab a whole bunch of others, but last question. What music do you listen to, and what is it that you like about it?
Mr. Table Topics Master, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and welcome guest Andrew. The music I listen to is varied. The music I will talk about today is Hawaiian music. The reason I listen to Hawaiian music ties into why Chris and Amy and John already spoke. Because I seized the day with Hawaiian music in that when I was a child, since I was 8 years old, I've traveled to and from Hawaii with my family. And my aunt lived there. She was a beatnik turned hippie turned professor at the University of Hawaii. And so we were able to have cheaper vacations in Hawaii than you could have going to northern Minnesota and the lake country. So for us, it was very reasonable. Sounded fancy? No, not fancy. We were half naked and no shoes, right? Listening to Hawaiian music. And it's just like in the mountains. There's a mountain behind us, there's the ocean, there's the sound of the waves, there's the smell of the fire on the beach. There's not s'mores, but there's tuna on these dry crackers, and there's freshly cracked open coconuts, and then we grill the coconut chips, and it tastes like better than potato chips. So yummy, because you've been all day in the sun and the surf. And at night, the local Hawaiians play their Hawaiian music, and they sit around, and they play guitar and steel guitar, and they sing and they talk story. They call it talk story. I don't have the accent, but that's what they do. And that's why I listen to Hawaiian music. And when my aunt moved back here to go into Sunrise Nursing Homes with her Alzheimer's, and she had about 3 weeks left, I brought my CD player and all my Hawaiian music, and I played it really loud at her bedside, because that's what she did on Sunday mornings at brunch at her place in Hawaii. And so she could pass gently listening to the Hawaiian, beautiful Hawaiian music.
topic, so we'll go on from there.
Thank you, Alan. And Tanya, are you going to be playing the role
Oh,
of
sure,
genuinely
sure,
evaluator?
yeah, sure. So,
Since we
here I come again.
change up, yep.
This says Tanya in Arabic. So I'm the general evaluator. I'm here to evaluate how the meeting went. The meeting went stellar. The speakers were phenomenal. The table topics were well thought out and well prepared, Alan. I appreciate it. Regarding, I will not have any acrimonious debate regarding whether camping is better in the Rockies, Yellowstone, or in Hawaii. It's Hawaii. The first speaker was Sarah. Sarah, all I wrote all over your eval was perfect, perfect, perfect. To say, you had very eloquent phrases. I hope the grammarian captured some. I didn't capture many. But question the assumption that someone is harming you. That's brilliant. That's taught in some other classes I've attended regarding women's conflict in the workplace. But no one is really harming you, and if you use the word should, you're mistaken. Should is you're putting something on someone else. Great examples, great use of language. Victim versus self-control and self-actualization. You were seeing someone who lives as a victim. Those are unempowered people who rarely have success in their lives. That's just a bummer and a downer, and I'm sad for Frowny. But I don't want to be Frowny, so. Chris, what is your most valuable asset? You used it, that's what you said, right? What's your most valuable asset? The word valuable asset, to me, I didn't know if you meant like in my humanness or a particular thing to own. When you told me I was on the island with just my underpants or something like that. So I loved that intro, and that was shocking. That whole part there. I loved all of that. The only thing I didn't get was, what is your most valuable asset? I might have chosen a different word. Tell us what it is and I said, tell us where you're going before changing from that wonderful intro where you jumped off into the body. I wasn't quite sure where you were going, but I loved everything about your speech. It's just that I wasn't quite sure where the connection was from the asset on the island. So that's all. But it was really good. I mean, I have to say it was really good. I wanted to pinpoint that. That was the only thing I was missing is when you jumped off, I wanted to know what I was going to learn about that. About what valuable asset I would have. So yeah, protect your assets. I got that. Use safety equipment. What I loved about your speech the most was that it took my breath away several times. And the words you chose were lovely. And your ending was important. And you even could have told us that his surgery is going to cost over $100,000, because I know it is. But it was a great speech. Thank you. Oh, wait. Shoot. I totally forgot what I was doing. I'm so sorry. I'm the general evaluator. I wasn't supposed to do any of that. I'm supposed to bring up the
Have extra evaluations.
Sarah, please come up and evaluate her. Golly. I'm just a sub. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry.
Fellow Toastmasters, distinguished guests, most especially Stacy, and thank you, Tanya. Actually, I think this was nice to get, get kind of double the evaluation, kind of a mini evaluation and full evaluation. So I think it was good to have that. Tanya already mentioned a little bit about Stacy, so I'll give some of my impressions too. First of all, Stacy's a relatively new member. This is her second speech here at Pioneers, but she is taking a non-conventional approach and kind of jumping around in the book, which I think is fine, and we checked with Amit, and he kind of says it's fine. And she is doing the inspirational speech today, and I think it's very apparent that she's an accomplished speaker already, very entertaining, captivating, and it was very enjoyable. Her speech talked about Frowny, kind of this pessimistic, dark, negative person that we probably all identify with at some point in our lives, and tying that into feeling helpless in general. Frowny's feeling helpless, and how pet peeves make us feel that way, or something that really irritates us. And I think it was really effective to have everybody think about something really irritating in their mind and keep that in their mind as they go through the speech. And you talk about how to address feeling helpless and pet peeves, and what I got out of your overall take home is to be kind. And I thought that was really nice too. The one thing I would have liked to hear
A little more is the concept of feeling helpless, just maybe just repeating that word a few times throughout, since it was the title of your speech, maybe even tying that into being kind, because I really felt that theme pretty strongly. When I asked you ahead of time if there's anything you wanted me to look for, you mentioned that you brought your notes, but you didn't use them. You didn't use them at all. It didn't seem like you really needed to use them at all. I think that was really good. One thing that I really liked when you first started your speech, you came up and you put your notes down, and then you were very forceful. You just came to the front of the room and you just started. So you're very confident with your posture and the way you hold yourself and the way you move around the room. At the beginning, I noticed you moved a little more often than you probably needed to, but that settled down a little bit as you got into your body. But your movement is very forceful, and I think your gestures, which you had mentioned, you tend to use a lot of gestures. I didn't think you used too many gestures at all. In fact, I think they're very effective. I tend to do this a lot, and only this, but you had a lot of variance in what you were doing. When you were talking about the clothes hamper, and your clothes hamper's over here, clothes are here, here, and here, and here, and I can relate to that too, because my husband does that all the time. He puts his clothes on the clothes hampers. Open it up. I think that was really good. And just going through the evaluation guide here, some things that stuck out to me was the speaker forceful, confident, and positive, and I would say very, very much so. Did the speaker's words convey strong, vivid mental images? Definitely. You used really good words. Your vocabulary is obviously very good. You're English major, and that makes sense. Listening to you speak is very nice. I really enjoyed that. In terms of other things I can think of to make the speech more effective, again, maybe watching for too much movement near the beginning, but I don't think it was overly excessive, and repeating those 3 steps on how to improve your pet peeve response, I think, would be very helpful. And maybe even adding a little bit more to the conclusion would have been nice, just to kind of wrap it all up together. But in general, I think you did a very good job, and I really enjoyed it.
That was a great evaluation. Our next evaluator is DeGod, and he's going to evaluate Chris.
Actually, thanks to you, Tanya, you did my job so that my job is easier. I'm not a very good evaluator because I'm like, what am I looking for? But I'm glad that they have listed all the bullet points where what should be evaluated upon. And Chris, by the way, Madam General Evaluator, Toastmasters, and dear guests, and especially Chris Nibby. This was Persuade with Power, that's the speech. And this is your speech number 9. And you were very successful in persuading, at least me, I can't speak for others, about using safety equipment for everything. So you got 100 points for that. Out of 100. Did the speaker project sincerity and conviction? Yes, he did, because he mentioned his first-hand and second-hand experiences. What I was not very clear about, that you broke your own bones or you, no, okay. So I was not very clear about that. Was the speaker a credible source of information about this topic? We all know that Chris does a lot of things outside of normal things, so, so you think it's credible source of information. Did the speaker phrase his or her appeal in terms of the audience's self-interest? Of course. I mean, we all, one time or other, in a situation where we feel like having used those safety tools or equipment. So yes, you got 4 points for that too. Did the speaker use facts and logical reasoning to support his or her views? I mean, the personal experience and the second-hand experience, I think, counts for that. But I would like to see some more facts, like, hey, last year so many people lose their limbs or something. not using safety equipment, so goggles or whatever. Did the speaker properly use emotions to persuade the audience to support his or her views? Yes. Excellent. Was the speech organization effective? Excellent. Did the speaker's body language and vocal variety contribute to the message? Yes, of course. The only thing I would comment on that part is, I personally felt that there were a lot of pauses than necessary. That's all I would say. But otherwise it was excellent. Were you persuaded to accept the speaker's view? Of course, yes. What could the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? I was not very clear about the title. We talked about that before it, so maybe if you make up your mind before about the title, then maybe it's clear. What did you like about the speech? The way you started your speech, you stepped on the table and you jumped. Awesome. I really liked it. And the experiences, like real experiences, real events. Thanks.
Very good evaluations for our evaluators. And now I would like to ask Thomas to come up as the grammarian.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters. I have several colorful phrases. I'll go through the ahs, ums, and that first, and I'll come back to the colorful phrases. I didn't capture everybody's colorful phrases because I wanted to try to grab a few of everybody's. For ahs and ums, John, you had 5 ums. You used the word of the day twice. Abby, you had 1 and 1 so. Stacy, you had 1 Chris, you used the word of the day twice, and I didn't hear any ahs or ums. Tanya, you had 3 ahs, 3 ums, and 1 so. Sarah, you had 1 ah and 1 so. Daganta, you had 3 ahs, 1 1 so, and 1 and. Alan, you had 4 ahs, 4 ums, and 1 so, and you used the word of the day also 1 time. So everybody did great with that. Amy, I didn't hear any ahs or ums from you. I don't know if people like knowing exactly how many ahs and ums. I've been conditioned to do that at previous Toastmasters I was at because I was told that when we just tell you that you've had a few or a couple or a lot, it doesn't give you a target frame to kind of work towards. And so if I tell you exactly where you're at, it gives you more of a benchmark for where to go and improve on. So that's why I'm not trying to pick on anybody. Nobody feels that way. Colorful languages. I'll start with Stacy. You had a lot of colorful language, like Tanya said in your speech. The one that I really got down was, get your butt in the bathtub this minute when you're raising your voice and doing all the bad gestures. And then, of course, frowny. That alone says it all. Chris, a sturdy branch would come in handy. Amy, stretching your boundaries, trying something new. Now I would like to go back to my chair. John, when you were talking about eating s'mores, it's the benefit of a mustache. Alan, I'd like to go on your party, Chris, but unfortunately I had a graduation I had to host. Tanya, when you were talking about the trip in Hawaii, we were half naked and no shoes. And then, of course, I'm the general evaluator. I wasn't supposed to do any of that.
Very nice. And Abby, would you please come up
Sure.
as timer?
That's going to be hard to top.
Thank you. Oh, I'll get it.
Here's be prepared for my harmonious report from the timer station my very first time. Speakers, you did wonderful. Stacy, 8 to 10 minutes. You were at 7 minutes, 2 seconds. I never had to flip the light on. plenty of time and you were very paced well, so you didn't feel rushed. Chris, you asked for 5 to 7 and you were at 6 minutes 50 seconds, so right in there, good. Let's see, our table topics. First up, Chris, you had 1 minute 23 seconds. Amy, 1 minute 23 seconds also, it must be a row thing over there. John, you were at 1 minute 55 seconds. Tanya, 2 minutes and 2 seconds. And Tanya came up for her full evaluation. You were at 3 minutes 12 seconds. Sarah, your evaluation, you had 3 minutes 30 seconds, so right on time. And let's see. And then you, sir, were at, it was hard to decide when you started, because you kind of talked and you were a little, like for 30 seconds or so. Then when you actually spoke and did your evaluation, you're at 3 minutes 40 seconds, so a little over. So pay attention to the light, please. Hope you liked your evaluation.
Yes.
You had the lights on?
I had the lights on and I was holding the cards up. I tend to watch to see if people are looking back there and then I'll hold the card
I
up
saw the
again.
card
Okay.
going up.
Yeah. The other thing is if there's someone sitting there, I moved it over so you couldn't really see it. Thank you, we were very good on time today.
I already gave you my general evaluation and then some. Great meeting, and I'll pass it over to Mr. Toastmaster, and you can close us out.
Thank you, Tanya. It's rather exciting to watch this whole evaluation, wondering what is going on. Okay. One thing I did forget is, were there any announcements we need to bring up? And since I was sort of the substitute, I don't know what next week's list is.
So, I can just make note, from an officer's perspective, we have a meeting this Friday where we will be finalizing the next term officers coming in. So if you just ask one last time, you have a desire, there's still a couple of roles remaining, let me know if you're interested in it. Otherwise, I think we've got a pretty good set of who will be filling the roles, and so watch for that announcement coming out soon. Anything else I've missed?
Just remember her story on success. Go out of your comfort zone.
Try it.
I will be the Toastmaster list next week, so I'll send everybody a reminder when I get back to my office.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and have a successful, out-of-the-box week. Thank you.